Hi everybody, my name is Zach, and before I get to my speech, I wanted to start off with a little bit of a thought experiment. So I'd like everybody to imagine that they live exactly where they live now, but they don't have access to a car or public transportation. So they can't borrow a friend's car, they can't ride the bus, Uber and Lyft either don't exist or they're just not options in this instance. But point blank, you don't have an automobile. Now, with that in mind, I'd like you to think about the area around you and what your options would be for buying groceries or for buying meals. Do you have fast food joints down the road that you can walk to? Is there a farmer's market that you can make your way to buy groceries? Is it just convenience stores like a 7-Eleven that, mostly has just junk food? Chances are it's mostly just convenience stores and fast food. Excuse me. A lot of people in the country, and especially in big cities, aren't lucky enough to live right down the street from a grocery store. And in the case that they don't have a car or can't afford a Lyft or an Uber every few days, their options are usually limited to eating fast food, eating convenience store food. There isn't really options for healthy, sustainable, and affordable food that they can stock their pantry with. So, as you may have been able to tell, my speech today is going to be about eating sustainably. And what is eating sustainably? It is simply just the act of thinking more about where your food comes from. So rather than just saying, oh, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go grab a burger, it's about kind of thinking where that burger comes from, where, the cows are raised, the steps that it goes through to get into your hands, how the employees are treated along the way. It's not something that you do every single time you eat. It's just something that you keep in the back of your mind as a bigger picture. So something that also a lot of people kind of confuse or mix up is that eating sustainably and eating vegan or eating vegetarian are not necessarily the same thing. They do share a lot of similarities, and eating sustainably does typically concern itself with both the rights of humans and the rights of animals, but you don't have to eat vegan or vegetarian to think about sustainable eating or to support sustainable eating. Some will argue that to fully eat sustainably, you need to eat vegan, but that's a whole other argument, a whole other can of worms that I'm not going to get into in this speech. What I am going to get into is why we should all think more about sustainable eating and sustainable food in our communities and globally. Because right now, we're just not doing this right. There are so many people in the country that either go hungry or just eat chips and McDonald's every single day because that's all they can really get to most of the time. They go to 7-Eleven and maybe there's one apple or one banana like in a basket on the counter, but that's not going to support a family. That's not going to be enough healthy food to take home and make a dinner with. So now that we've covered what sustainable eating is, how do we eat more sustainably? So there are a lot of steps and a lot of things that any individual can do to support sustainable eating and to eat more sustainably themselves. Now, because sustainable eating is such a broad, diverse, wide topic, There's a lot of big steps you can take, there's a lot of little steps you can take, and there's a whole spectrum of different things. So I would never have enough time to cover absolutely everything in one video, but I strongly encourage everybody to look into it themselves. I think it's really fascinating stuff, and it's very, very important. But the first and most major thing with sustainable eating is to think about your community and those around you and how everybody in that community eats. Farmers markets are a great thing to support. You know, they kind of bring the community together. Produce is often cheaper at a farmer's market. You're supporting somebody right down the road. There's an abundance of food, and unfortunately a lot of places don't have farmers markets that you can go to. But what's even better is that if you live in a place without a farmer's market, starting your own would be the biggest step to sustainable eating that almost any individual could make, is to start a farmer's market in a place where there isn't one, which is a big feat, and I understand. So I'm going to lean towards encouraging people to support local farmers markets that already exist. It's a little bit more feasible, but if you are willing to take a big leap or to take that extra step, starting a farmer's market is a great thing that you can do. But next, aside from thinking about your local community and all that, is to think just about kind of yourself and your family. A great thing to do to eat sustainably is to start a garden and just grow your own veggies. You obviously don't have to be, you know, self-supporting every single night. You don't have to grow all of your own dinner. But even if it's just, you know, a side to a main dish here and there, every little bit helps. And finally, the last part in sustainable eating is thinking globally. Now, there are a lot of companies that don't necessarily have the best track record when it comes to human rights and just generally doing the right thing in relation to food and growing food and selling food. Chiquita Banana and Dole Fruit Company are two big examples that come to mind. They have supported in the past very violent coups to kind of get the land that they need to grow bananas. They have used very harmful chemicals that have given workers cancer and other really nasty diseases. They don't pay their workers a living or fair wage at all. And some of these companies too use child labor because in other countries it's, you know, it still may be illegal there, but it's a lot easier to get away with. So in a global context, think about who's growing your food and think about, you know, how that food gets there, and are those people being sort of abused in the position that they're in, and you know, what goes on with your food. Is there, you know, an apple company that you could support locally rather than getting your apples from the state of Washington? Really, it's just all about looking at what you're eating and thinking about the bigger picture. It's a very diverse and broad topic, and sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's really not, but it's a very important thing to do. And I strongly, strongly encourage all of us to put more thought into it. We need to fix this system that we're in because it isn't working. A lot of people can't eat healthy, and even the food that's killing them is still making them go broke too. So we really need to start pushing this and making this more of an effort for everybody, whether that's in the local community or around the world. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. And yeah, that's my speech today about sustainable eating. Thank you.